G'day folks, this is Raymond Foster. Hope you're doing great. I'm sure everyone alive today is quite well aware that things cost a bit more now. The price of things is increasing, okay? Now, we've probably all heard multiple times older folk from generations above mine, the boomers and whatnot, speaking about how they could afford houses in their 20s for maybe 20 grand. And the same house today is worth 400 grand. Yet wages have gone down. So not only do our property, things we need to survive, cost tens and tens times more than they did just 40, 50 years ago, we actually get paid less now as well. And we're expected to be able to afford those very same things. So everyone seems to be quite familiar. If you have any use of finances in this world, unless you're a child, a dependent, and your parents buy everything for you, if you use money, you have an awareness of this situation. It's a global situation. It's happening all over the world. Things are costing more. Stuff costs more than it did last year. Economists and governments predict that things will cost even more in the future. That things will just constantly cost more and more and more and more. Okay? So we're all quite well aware of this phenomena, this situation. But how many people are aware of the why and the hows? Why is the global economy failing? Why was there a Great Depression? Why do we have inflation? Why do the price of things keep going up? These are simple questions that we can answer if we understand the way the world works and what's happening in the world. Okay? Many people will say, for example, as I just alluded to, especially folk who call themselves economists, will try to claim and make out as though, well, the world is the way it is. We have this economic slavery and financial hardship in this current age simply because of a quote-unquote bad economy, quote-unquote inflation, quote-unquote scarcity, quote-unquote overpopulation, etc., etc., etc. Is any of this actually real and true? No. So, do we have a bad economy? No. Okay? Are interest rates reflective of anything in reality? No. Is inflation, alright, the economic term, the thing they say is the reason why stuff costs more every year, alright? The devaluing of your money in your bank account. Alright, so you have just say you have 3 grand in your bank. In 5 years from now, it's going to be 2 grand and something, or less. Maybe only 1 grand. Why? Because of what the economists call inflation. But is that real? No. In the real world, there are elite slave masters who have enslaved the entire planet, and they're robbing us all. We're all being robbed. Right? Is inflation real? No, it's not real. It's actually called an anti-white meme pathogen, and it only exists in the anti-white narrative, which is used to justify white erasure and the destruction of Western kind, all Western nations. So, when you hear people talk about the economy, a bad economy, a good economy, and specifically the term inflation, okay, you remember quite well, and you tell people, inflation isn't real, mate. It's called an anti-white meme pathogen that only exists in the anti-white narrative, and it's used to justify the theft, okay, of Western kind's inheritance. So the reason why when we go to the shop now, things cost more than they did 20 years ago. It's not, there's no mathematical reason. They're lying. The things the economists say, inflation, it's lies. The reality is we're all being robbed. They want you to believe that things like inflation actually exist in the real world, because then you won't notice you're being robbed. It creates a justification for the theft of your wealth. You see? If you just assume that the economists are telling the truth and inflation is a real thing, it actually exists, legit, bro. Yeah, inflation for sure. It's real, man. It's definitely real, inflation, yeah. Then you'll happily pay more every year, alright? And you'll slowly fall into poverty and be a slave until you own nothing. Why? Because you think inflation's a real thing. Whereas if they told you the truth, that inflation doesn't actually exist, it's not a real thing, it's only a fake made up nonsense thing that they just lie about, a pretext, a justification, alright? Then things costing more wouldn't be acceptable because you're just being robbed, you see? So no one would allow themselves to be robbed. Nothing would cost more. Everything would constantly be cheaper, okay? Your wages would go up every year and the price of everything would be going down. The average house in Australia would be less than $5,000 max, okay? We're talking $1 million properties. Now they would actually only be 20 grand. But you can't charge someone $1 million for a 20 grand property unless they believe inflation is real and that 20 grand property actually costs $1 million now. And so people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for 10 grand houses. You hear what I'm saying? Your house is only worth 10 grand. Probably less. But you paid a couple $100,000 for it, for a 10 grand house. Why? Because they told you inflation's real and that it costs a couple of $100,000 now, bro. It's not actually 10 grand still. So you happily paid hundreds of thousands of dollars extra, which was years of slavery, slave labor. Because you've been lied to, because why? Inflation ain't real. It's an anti-white meme pathogen. Invented by anti-whites to promote white erasure and the theft of Western kind's inheritance, which will be repatriated to us. Thank you. I'm owed millions of fucking dollars. And so are you if you're a member of our race. Right? We're all owed millions of dollars. And it will be repatriated because, like I said, we can prove it's been stolen from us. And the only key that stops people from seeing that is they actually believe the lie, the fake pretend nonsense of inflation. So then they think that things costing more is actually legitimate. They're not just being robbed. So once people realize, and we make it well aware, well known, worldwide, all right, millions of cunts are going to be spreading this over the next 10, 20 years. It's going to be well known, worldwide mainstream knowledge. Your children are going to talk about it in school with their friends. I'm going to make sure of it. All right? And when enough people on this planet understand what inflation actually means, then they're not going to pay extra. They're not going to pay $1 million or a few $100,000 for a 10 grand bloody house like the one behind me, right? They're not going to be getting ripped off paying hundreds of grands for a 10 grand house because they won't believe the lie of inflation. So they'll only pay what it's actually worth, 10 grand. Then nobody's going to be getting robbed. We'll all be rich and the government can fuck off. Sounds good to me. Take it easy. Any questions? you want to know more about the facts of this phenomena, this matter, and you want to understand how economics works, hit me up, put the questions below in the thread, and I'll make a video, I'll address it, and I'll explain it all. Take it easy. Let's save this planet. Let's save humanity. End slavery forever. And everyone can live rich, abundant, and have everything they need. And more. And we're gonna make it happen. So join me. Be a hero. Go down in history, on the right side of history, fighting for freedom and the people. Take it easy.